Welcome to the Epic Podcast, your elopement photographer inspiration compass. I'm your host, Sheryl Anne, elopement photographer, former Navy officer, and proud mama. This is where adventure and destination elopement photographers come to get inspired, connect, and keep learning. If you're ready to reach new heights and find your true north, you're in the right place. Stay epic. Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Epic Podcast. I'm your host, Sheryl Anne. Today we have our Halloween special. We had a bunch of photographers submit their horror stories and they're pretty crazy. So I'm so excited to dive into that. Obviously it's a Halloween special, so I had to dress up in some way. So I got Remy from Ratatouille on my head. Honestly, it's a vibe. You guys, look at him hold up my curls. Can you imagine if there was a rat that would sit on our head and help us take awesome pictures? I would consider it, honestly. Might be a vibe. Anyways, let's move on to our tradition of Win of the Week. Our Win of the Week goes out to Payton of Payton Rademacher Photo. She just announced that she is going to be featured in Adventure Wed Magazine, which is huge. So congratulations to you, Payton. Your photos are amazing and you're so talented. So congratulations on your feature in Adventure Wed. Let's go into life updates. Obviously, this episode is being released during Halloween week. So let's talk costumes for my daughter, Theo Elise. So we got her one costume, which is Little Red Riding Hood, which has this really cute velvet red capelet. And then her brother and sister, Kaya and Nova, are huskies that will be pretending to be the grandma. The grandma did not eat the wolf. The wolves that ate grandma. And they have these cute little grandma outfits and will be wearing little glasses. So that's one costume. The second costume is her being a little bumblebee. Then me and my husband, John, will be in like beekeeper outfits, and Kaya and Nova will be in like these floral collars, and look like flowers. So those are the two costumes that she'll be wearing. And I believe that is it for Win of the Week and life updates. Let's go ahead and dive into this week's episode. Okay, guys, let's dive into the horror stories. If you guys are watching, I removed Remy from my head because he was pulling at my hair and it wasn't a vibe. So instead of wearing my costume, I took out one of my lanterns instead. And honestly, it adds to the spooky vibe, you guys. So, okay. Anyways, let's dive into these horror stories. Okay. Oh yeah. Before we dive in, I promised I would give you guys an update from that one submission way back when from the anonymous photographer who had said that the bride had opened up to this photographer in the car as they were driving to their elopement and kind of expressed how they had discussed divorce was an option before their elopement. This is what she responded back with. The photographer said, "When the bride told me, I was like, do you want me to turn around? Are you okay doing this?" Before she said anything, I thought they were happy and so excited to get married. But after I was hyper aware and looked for any odd reaction, I couldn't help myself. The groom cried during their first look, but then was so cold-faced during the ceremony. He was so nice, but I just couldn't shake what she told me. I have no idea if they are together. She did text me afterward and thanked me for helping make their day so special. How they were still walking on clouds and it was the best day ever. I didn't hear anything after delivering their gallery, and there hasn't been much activity except for downloads, etc. Well, let's hope that they are still together and that they had their happily ever after, because that'd be such a bummer if they didn't. But thank you, anonymous photographer, for that update that we were all hoping for. Okay, let's dive into the horror stories. Okay, the first one is from Savannah Poole Photography. Savannah, thank you for your submission. She titled her horror story, "What a Shit Show." Says here, "Never in my wildest dreams did I think this would ever happen with a grown adult. I was shooting my friend's wedding, and during the reception part, bride and groom were requesting I take photos of them with guests during table touches. Cool, no worries. The very last table was the bride's family. It was a fairly large round table, so I asked the folks facing their backs to all stand and get on the other side of the table. Everything seemed pretty normal. I was prompting, smile, awesome, okay, now celebrate. And then all of a sudden, the father of the bride seemed off. His face was expressionless. The bride turned to him and they were whispering something to each other. Then more whispering is happening. Keep in mind, I'm standing there with my camera like, hello. Bride, father of the bride, and mother of the bride storm off to the bathroom. I have no idea what happened. After 25 minutes of waiting, I go into the bathroom and the bride is bawling. She is mortified and explains to me that her father shit his pants during that photo. I felt so bad for her. Apparently, he's an alcoholic and always causes some sort of commotion. Well, I saw the father of the bride walk out with his suit jacket tied around his waist. Pretty shitty thing to do at your daughter's wedding. LOL. Bride wiped her eyes off and danced the rest of the night, thankfully, but it definitely took off 45 minutes of their coverage. Oh my gosh, I don't even know if to laugh or to feel bad for this bride. I mean, obviously I feel bad for her, but that is just next level mortifying. But good on her for kind of just shaking it off and continuing to dance the rest of the night away, because I don't know if I could just go back to celebrating. And it's also sad because in some ways alcoholism is obviously a sickness and it's something that her father was struggling with. It's just unfortunate that it went this went down at his daughter's wedding. Man, I feel like nothing can prepare a photographer for this. So good on you, Savannah, for maintaining your composure and professionalism and handling this really well, because I don't know what I would have done. I would have felt so bad for the bride. But anyways, thanks for your horror submission. That was crazy. Okay, let's see. What is the next one? Okay, this one is from Karen Agurdo Photo. Perfect. Thank you, Karen, for your submission. She titled this horror story, Lady in the Dark. Ugh, sounds scary. She said, so it's not really spooky, more horror experience of real living people. I was shooting an elopement of a fellow photographer who wanted the raws at the end of the night. The bride/photographer and a guest let them know they didn't want any pictures of them. Something about they're in some legal dispute with some government. I agreed and told them no worries. I specifically avoided taking pictures of them the entire day, but then the group photo came on. The bride and groom asked everyone to be in the photo, but this specific guest stepped off to the side. The bride noticed and called them over to be in the picture, which the guests obliged and posed with everyone. I thought it was interesting, but assumed since they got in the photo that they were okay with it. Later on, I was taking photos of the cake inside the house and thought I was alone. Then suddenly, this woman appears from the pitch black living area and tells me to delete the photo. I laughed at first because she scared me, and I told her, "Oh, you scared me." She didn't think this was funny, LOL. She told me she had asked me not to take any pictures of her and to delete the photo. I let her know it wasn't up to me to delete the photo and to ask the bride. She became upset and said she wasn't going to ruin the bride's day by bringing up a silly question. I repeated myself that I couldn't delete the photo, but that I wouldn't even be using them. It's for the bride and I wouldn't have a copy of them. I had 2 SD cards in each camera, one from the bride and one that was mine. I had 2 in case one failed, but wasn't planning on using the photos for marketing or anything. Anyway, I told this woman I understood she didn't want any pictures of her, but again, she needs to take it up with the bride. She was very angry at this point, telling me I don't understand, fuck you, and hopes I never book another job again. I just kind of slipped by feeling very uncomfortable arguing with this lady in the dark and went to the bride to let her know this woman was harassing me. The bride rolled her eyes and told me not to delete the photo and apologized. 15 minutes later, as I'm packing up to leave after I've given the bride her SD card back, the groom approached me with this woman asking what I did. I'm incredibly confused. This woman's telling him I took photos of her without permission. I'm just like, what in the world? I tell them I don't have the pictures anymore, not even thinking about my SD card because my plan was to wipe the memory. The lady is telling me to go get the memory card back and delete the photo. I remember I have mine and say that's what I have and can delete that. She calls me a liar because I just said I didn't have the photos. Oh my God. What really stuck out to me with this submission was the fact that she emerged from the dark living room kind of creeps me out because she was in there in the dark watching you and must have something tells me that she was probably waiting for you, like waiting for a moment where you were by yourself to approach you. And she was just hanging out in the dark. And that is so creepy. I feel like you handled this very professionally, though, in just such a quick manner, just to give her the SD card and be done with it. Because she probably would have just harassed you for a while if you didn't even just give her the SD card. But I'm sorry she treated you this way. I feel like that should have been handled between the bride and the groom and this lady. And it sucks that you kind of had to deal with her the whole day, it sounds like. But thank you for your submission, Karen. Okay, let's go to the next submission. This one is from Christina Perhack Photo. Thank you, Christina, for your submission. She titled this horror story, Something Sweet. She said, "This is my first year as a full-time elopement photographer. I still get anxious picking out my couples' ceremony locations because I want them to be incredible for my couples. My couples choose their general locations, but in the Redwoods, there can be more freedom in choosing the exact spot. My mom passed away when I was little, and my sister and I get special signs from her in the form of hearts. Well, on a recent Redwood elopement, I was extra stressing on the perfect spot on the trail. I asked for help and guidance. Well, once I was sure I found the spot, I decided to walk the trail just a turn more. At the turn, there was a giant tree with a carved-out middle from a lightning strike. I walked through the tree and turned around, and there was the biggest heart cut into the tree. I couldn't help but beam and laugh out loud with joy and a little tear. I knew this was a spot for my couple. The next day, I took my couple down the trail. After their ceremony, I walked them to the tree. They thought it was so cool. They loved their location and the full experience." I also have a follow-up question on the forum. So it says, how did you handle it? What did you learn from it? And she said, "It's not spooky, just some woo-woo and an example that we are so guided and loved, and all we need to do is be open to the universe." I love that. That is so sweet. I really feel like that was a sign from your mom for sure. And I'm glad that she was with you during this stressful moment and showed you this epic location for your couple. I have seen that picture, and you guys need to go to her profile. Again, her Instagram is Christina Perhack Photo, but the photo that she posted of this particular spot, it literally looks like a heart. And it's so special that she found that. The Redwoods is such a big, vast area, and for her to find that particular tree, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you. This was a very sweet, sweet story. Okay, thank you, Christina, for your submission. Okay, let's go to the next one. This one is from Karen Akurto Photo again. She said, "It's Karen again," and it's called Flash Flood. She said, "I was meeting up with another photographer in Death Valley to scout locations for a couple eloping there. I had routed from home to Death Valley and all looked good. When I checked the weather, there was rain predicted for earlier in the day, but I wasn't going to be there at that time. I thought it was good to go, but failed to check the weather forecasted for the cities I would be driving through. I had never really considered the possibility of encountering flash flood conditions, but knew canyons and whatnot were dangerous when it rained. I just didn't connect the dots with Death Valley. Anyway, as I'm driving, I finally decide to check the weather and see it's going to be raining in some of the cities I'd be driving through. No big deal. It's just rain. It ended up being the craziest thunderstorm I had ever driven through. Like it was apocalyptic. Constant lightning, the skies were dark, super heavy clouds, and everyone was driving with their hazards on. This was on the highway and I was white-knuckling it, but I was on pavement, and while I was scared out of my mind, there was some peace of mind that I was still in civilization on a paved road. I then have to get off the freeway into a random little small dirt town. GPS was taking me through the desert into Death Valley, and I had to pull over to contemplate if I just wanted to turn around. I was honestly pretty screwed because it was pouring everywhere. So I thought, well, let's just keep going. There were literal rivers flowing through the desert and road. I was freaking out thinking I was going to be swept away. There was one crossing I wasn't sure I'd make, but timed it so that I passed when a semi was. I figured if I was going to be swept into the river, the truck would be there to stop me, ? I hydroplaned but floated across. Stop. Oh my gosh, Karen, this is hysterical. As I kept driving, the rain lessened and I was moving away from the storm. I tailgated the only other car on the road because I didn't want to have an emergency and be alone. So they were my road buddy until I made it to the park. Now I'm scared to drive in the rain. That is a horror story. Karen, is your car okay? You said, I hydroplaned but floated across. You gotta let us know. Is your car okay? That is actually so funny. Remind me to never go on a trip with you because I would be honestly just like you and just tell you to push on as well. And we would probably get stuck in this mess together. Oh my gosh. I love this story. This is hysterical. Thank you for sending this horror story in. Okay, let's go to the next one, you guys. This is from Anonymous. And they titled the horror story, The Worst That Could Happen. Not a photographer's story, but I'm a photographer and this happened at my elopement. My husband and I planned our Dolomites wedding 1.5 years in advance. It's all our families could talk about. The Dolomites aren't like any other place I visited. There is so much magic and this grand sense of meaning there. The energy is so powerful and it's the best feeling of being small, yet important and whole in this universe. We were also so excited, particularly my husband's stepfather, Mark. He was over the moon, and after every time we'd see him, he'd remind us we'd all be celebrating in the Dolomites soon. He watched documentaries, researched hikes, watched YouTube videos. He was really looking forward to being there with us. We had our engagement party mid-July and had the best time celebrating with our friends and family. At the end of the party, when we said goodbye to Mark, he said he'll see us soon. Next time would be in the Dolomites in September. 2 weeks later, I'm out running errands and considered driving over to my mother-in-law and Mark's house to drop something off. However, I was tired and decided, I'll do it another time and continued past the exit. My husband calls me the next minute and said, Mark's dead. His friend had called that there was an ambulance at his mom's house. I headed to their house to find my mother-in-law shattered and the ambulance leaving without a body, forcing the truth that Mark had passed. We think he suffered a heart attack and my mother-in-law found him in their home. The loss of Mark was so great in our families and friends. He was larger than life, kind guy. He gave bear hugs, enjoyed talking to people, and had so much love to give. And he was also so incredibly excited for the Dolomites and was stolen 1 month before he could live out this dream. His funeral was scheduled exactly 1 month before our wedding. It was such an odd time. Everyone was sitting heavy in their grief, but there was also this super exciting thing happened. Two very opposite ends of the spectrum colliding. My mother-in-law was absolutely brokenhearted. We all worried how being in the Dolomites would affect her. Mark was a huge whiskey dude, so we chose a small way to honor him during our ceremony with a shot of whiskey. Once we flew into Italy, I didn't have time to buy a bottle, so I asked my planner to pick one up for me. I told her any bottle was fine. On the day of our wedding, we were in the most gorgeous spot in the mountains. It had finished sprinkling as we arrived at our ceremony location. When it was time for the shot, my planner brought out the whiskey bottle, and my mother-in-law gasped, saying that was Mark's favorite whiskey. Aww. It was all perfectly coincidental, and we all felt in that moment as if he was with us while we took a shot. The next day, we went on a hike with my mother-in-law to one of the hikes Mark had researched. The clouds were covering the peaks. It was sunny and overall a really perfect day. My mother-in-law was a bit nervous going on this hike because it was one they had planned together, but she said she felt him the entire hike. She said he was all around and felt enveloped with his presence. That is so sweet. I love when things align like that. And that in some way he was present during your day with the bottle of whiskey and letting you know that he was there. That's really sweet. I love these Halloween submissions in the sense that it's like not like spooky ghost, but like kind-spirited ghost, you know? Thank you guys for that submission, whoever that was. That was really kind. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is from Anonymous as well. They titled their horror story, Till Death Do Us Part. I once filmed an intimate wedding on crispy October Friday the 13th along an elopement photographer. The couple was all about the spooky vibe. One bride wore a black dress, the other pink, and the whole aesthetic was Halloween inspired, including spiderweb decorations, a tombstone-shaped sign, and fake skeleton bone goblets for champagne. Their families were small but lively, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. The photographer created the plan and timeline, which crammed 3 different locations, including a national landmark, into just 4 hours during Friday rush hour traffic. That's a red flag. I knew it was going to be tight, which I expressed to the photographer and couple beforehand, but we tried to make it work. We ended up running drastically behind schedule and racing against the last bits of daylight for the ceremony and family portraits. Despite the chaos, everything turned out surprisingly well. The couple loved their video, and their families were full of energy and love, especially the father of one of the brides who walked down the aisle wearing a Jason mask pretending to stab. Their answer to how did you handle it and what did you learn? They said the two lessons I took away were, 1, 4-hour elopements are rushed. It was silly to try to squeeze too many things into a short amount of time. Rush hour is real, jam-packed. Parking lots are real, so plan buffer time accordingly. And number 2, sometimes you have to do the best you can with what you have. Be cool. Trust your skills. Thank you for your submission. That was like very Halloween vibes. I love it. I love their wedding. The fact that it was on Friday the 13th, they really leaned into it with the whole aesthetic and spooky vibes. Oh, it's so cool. So cool. The black and pink dresses and just the whole Halloween vibe, and the dad wearing the Jason mask and pretending to stab down the aisle. I love that their family also was just so into their wedding vibe as well. That's really special. But going back to the entire point of your story, how they rushed their timeline and crammed everything into a 4-hour period, you handled that really well, because that sounds like a horror story in itself. And it sounds like everything at least went off without a hitch. So that's good. Thank you, whoever this is, for your submission. Okay, let's go to our last horror story of the evening, because I gotta get to bed, you guys. Okay, this is from Julia Mina Photo. She titled this story, "The Day I Almost Didn't Come Back from Donnell Vista." Let's see what Julia said. She always sends me the scariest stuff, and I hope this one's good. Okay, she said, "It was sometime during COVID, maybe 2021, when I got an inquiry from a couple who wanted to elope at Half Dome, but that year the road was closed. So I suggested an alternative. I told them, I know it's not the same, but there's this place I've been dying to photograph. Hardly anyone goes there, but it's absolutely beautiful. The location was called Donnell Vista, a cliffside overlook near a dam with this moody tunnel view-like vibe. Remote, quiet, and wild. They saw the photos I sent and instantly fell in love, so that's where we planned their elopement. Fast forward to the day of, I arrived an hour early to scout since I've never been there before. The sun was bright, the air felt warm, and everything looked peaceful. I started walking the area, checking out the angles, exploring the little side paths. Then I noticed a narrow trail that wasn't part of the main one. It led toward the lake. I remember thinking, that could be such a pretty spot for portraits, but as I stood there, something in me shifted. You know that gut feeling that stops you cold? I heard this quiet internal voice say, don't go there. Ooh, I just got chills. It wasn't fear exactly, more like a warning, so I listened. The overlook itself was already perfect, so I stayed close to that. Later, I met my couple and we spent the evening capturing their elopement. The light faded beautifully, the cliffs glowed orange, and it felt magical until the sun disappeared. As night fell, I remember suddenly feeling watched, not by people. It was different, primal. I brushed it off, thinking maybe it's just bears. After all, we were miles away from everything. Still, the feeling didn't leave. Once we wrapped up, I guided my couple back to their Airbnb. They didn't have GPS service out there. The drive was pitch black. No streetlights, just this narrow, winding road hugging the mountainside. The kind where your headlights only catch what's 10 feet in front of you. Even the town itself was eerily dark. At the time, I thought it was just a weird quirk of the area. Months later, even a year or two, my husband and I were watching true crime called Missing 411, The Hunted. It's about strange disappearances in national parks. I wasn't really paying attention until it said Donnell Vista. Oh my gosh. My stomach dropped. They started sharing real cases of people who went missing there under bizarre circumstances. My stories were eerily similar. Someone stops to take photos or hike alone, they vanish. The only thing found is their car, the keys, and phone left inside, and then it got stranger. They mentioned that locals avoid talking about the area. There are even audio recordings from the 1970s, hikers who claim they heard something mimicking human sounds in the woods. voices that weren't quite human, like an intelligent animal trying to speak. Oh, hell no, Julia. I knew you would fuck me up with something like this. I'm about to go to sleep and I'm getting chills, you guys. The men recorded it, and while they hid in their makeshift shelter, something rammed through the camp, destroyed everything, and then somehow, when it stopped... Oh my God. This story cut off. When it stopped everything. Okay, well, it ends here where it says, the men recorded it, and while they hid in their makeshift shelter, something rammed through their camp, destroyed everything, and then somehow when it stopped everything. And then it ends there. You guys, maybe I was meant to stop reading it where it is. It doesn't continue. It's a sign. So I'm going to take it as that is where we shall stop. That is creepy. That is scary. And I feel like that is definitely one of the elopement horror stories I was looking for. And now that I have it, kind of wish I didn't read it, because I feel like as elopement photographers, we go solo location scouting all the time. And the last thing we need is this creepy story lingering in the back of our minds. Oh my gosh, that is so creepy. I'm glad you listened to your gut and you didn't walk down that trail in Donnell Vista, because that would, who knows? I'm just glad you didn't walk down. But thank you, Julia, for your submission, because that is creepy. That is so creepy. Anyways, I think that is where we are going to end the submissions. I will share my own horror story. The horror story I will share is when I was in Yosemite. Funny to, that was where the last story was, but I was in my hotel editing photos. There was a man that knocked at the door. I was like, okay. And so I get up before I could even get to the door. He opens my door with a key card. And I was like, hi, can I help you? And he was like, oh, I'm just here to paint the walls, and looks into my room and looks around, which is kind of like a red flag, right? Because you don't know what this person is thinking. Maybe he was looking around seeing if my room needed painting, or maybe he was looking around to see if I was by myself or if I had anything expensive like camera gear. And I was like, can you just come back another time when I'm gone? And he's like, oh no, it's fine. I'm gonna leave now. I was like, okay, that's creepy and weird. So after he left, I went down to the lobby and I was like, hey, this man opened my door and said I was scheduled for painting maintenance. Are you guys aware of that? And they was like, oh, 1 second, let me check. And they checked the system and they talked to the manager and they're like, oh, you weren't scheduled for any maintenance. I was like, okay, well, you guys need to do something about this, because someone has a master key card and opened my door and said that I had maintenance done or needed maintenance done. And they're like, oh, okay. So they actually start freaking out and start talking around, and they bring the manager out, talk to him. Eventually, after a few minutes, they get back to me and they were like, oh, we found the person that went to your room. He was painting other rooms and he made a mistake and came to your room. He knows not to go to your room again, and this won't happen again. And I was like, okay, I guess I feel better. I don't know. I was so shook by it. I went back into my room, and then that night I just there's another red flag in this room was the door didn't have the typical bolt lock that you have at the top, to add in addition to the main lock. So I was freaked out by that. And I just took one of the chairs and just stuck it under the door to help jam it from coming back. But yeah, that is my horror story. And that is why I will always pick the bear. If you don't understand my reference, I need you to Google that. Women will always pick the bear. That's a fact. Anyways, you guys, I hope you guys have a happy Halloween. This was such a fun episode, just reading all of your submissions. Thank you guys so much. If you submitted the story and it wasn't read, don't worry. I'm going to gather the rest of the stories and distribute them out to other episodes. and it'll be fun to read. So thank you guys so much for listening in. If you guys liked this episode, leave a comment. You guys can follow me at Sheryl Anne Photo, follow for more at Epic Photo Podcast. And until we meet again, you guys, I hope you guys have a safe and awesome Halloween and go trick-or-treating. And until then, stay epic. Thanks for tuning into the Epic Podcast. If you love today's episode, don't forget to follow the show, leave a review, and share it with a friend who could use a little inspiration. You can connect with me on Instagram and TikTok at Sheryl Anne Photo or at Epic Photo Podcast for more stories, tips, and behind the scenes from life as an elopement photographer. Until next time, stay epic.